It is 1 p.m. March 9, 2026. The first of two strategic planning sessions for the Town Board of Trustees is in session. Okay, here we go. I think, Travis, you take it from here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. A quick reminder, just a housekeeping item before we get started. These microphones are always on and they're very sensitive. So any side conversations they're going to pick up, it's going to be hard to hear the main conversation for those in the audience or those looking at this after the fact. If there are side conversations going on, if there's chip bags wrestling, it can deteriorate the recording quality. So just a reminder there. Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. We are here today for the first session, the first of two sessions on the 2027 strategic plan. These sessions start early. As a reminder, I know it feels a little ridiculous to be talking about 2027 already here and still in the first quarter of 2026. This happens early every year because it feeds into our budget process. We want to make sure that the strategic plan that the town board lays out is strongly connected and interwoven with our budget process. So the discussions we have here and ultimately the provisional strategic plan you will adopt sometime in May will feed into directly the town staff development of the 2027 budget. A brief overview of the process before we jump into session one. For 2027, this is the first meeting. There will be a second meeting soon after the new board is seated in late April. Traditionally, we have waited for the new board to be seated before we began this process. We're trying something new this year because that always backs up our budget process, and we ended up compromising on the budget side of things, and we said, well, if we start here and then we can have an abbreviated session for the new trustees, abbreviated session one to start session two, we think we can get the same benefit without having to kick back our budget process. If that doesn't work, we can change it back in future years. Those of you that have been new trustees probably remember how challenging it is to get that fire hose of information coming at you right to start. So we're also hoping that this will even out and make it a little less challenging for new trustees to engage aggressively in the strategic planning process, which is important. So we're here today for the first session. The second session will be on April 30th, I believe, same time, same place. That will feed into a May action item for the town board to adopt a provisional strategic plan. The provisional strategic plan is, this is what we would like to accomplish in 2027 before it contacts financial reality. So the 2027 provisional strategic plan is what staff uses to develop the 2027 proposed budget. We then bring that budget to you at a series of sessions in October. You make modifications as you see fit. That budget draws a connection to the strategic plan objectives that you'll outline in the next two sessions. And then at the end of the budget process, after you adopt the budget, we'll adopt the final 2027 strategic plan that makes any modifications necessary because of the financial situation of the town or maybe the financial demands of any of the objectives. So right now, it's important to keep finances in mind, but it shouldn't override ideas or thoughts that you have for the long term. With that, any questions before I jump into the overall process?
Well, not a question, but a comment. I've noticed in the two cycles I've gone through before, we seem to spend an inordinate amount of time on like the first topic, and then we begin to accelerate and get efficient. And so I keep in mind the entire process. I think we'll all get the opportunities to get comments in, but we don't want to drill down too deep. This is the first and high level session.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. A primer for our strategic plan for those that may be watching that are new, and a reminder for the town board and town staff. Everything cascades down from the mission and vision. Those are at the top. Those are the alignment of our community. The vision is that the town of Estes Park will be an ever more vibrant and welcoming mountain community. The mission of the town of Estes Park is to provide high-quality, reliable services for the benefit of our residents, guests, and employees while being good stewards of public resources in a natural setting. Below that, you have 8 outcome areas. Each of those outcome areas is a specific area of services, area of programming, area of infrastructure that the board feels is critical to community success. The strategic policy statements provide further detail to that outcome area. So, for example, the exceptional community services outcome area states that Estes Park is an exceptionally vibrant, diverse, inclusive, and active mountain community in which to live, work, and play, with housing available for all segments of our community. Not a lot of detail on that, very broad statement. The strategic policy statements are intended to provide further detail to staff and the public about what that means to the town board, what having exceptional community services means. It means that we support the needs of our senior community, including housing. That feeds into our multi-year goals, so items that we may not be able to accomplish in 1 year, or even 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years, but we want to make sure it's considered every single strategic planning cycle, and then objectives. Objectives are those concrete 1-year things that we're committing to get done either in the next year or as a multi-year objective, something that is in process, like a construction project that's going to last a couple of years. So today we are talking just about the mission, the vision, the key outcome areas, and the strategic policy statements. Staff will take that back. Of course, board members are welcome to, and develop goals and objectives that carry out those high-level policy goals and outcomes. One new thing this year, we're trying to do a better job of connecting one of the best data sources we have, which is the National Community Survey. That's a statistically significant, statistically valid survey that we do every other year. PIO Miller coordinates that, and she's developed a summary of those key findings as they relate to strategic planning. That's in the packet for those of you that got it. I do want to go through a couple of those things really quickly. To start with, we do have a custom question, and this custom question was actually developed probably 8 years ago, when we were looking at potential budget uncertainty and needing to make reductions in certain areas, and we were hoping to gain feedback from the community about which areas might be priority areas for reduction. Over time, that's grown significantly, and it now serves a lot of different functions beyond just that original function, one of which we're talking about here today. If you look in that leftmost column, so the question is, for each of the following town services, please indicate whether you think the level of service should be increased, remain the same, or be decreased. You'll see that overall people will gravitate to the remain the same category. People are generally satisfied with the services and programs that the town provides. But we do want to highlight those first few items on the increase side. These are areas where there is little ambiguity that residents are asking for more service. Specifically, those with the majority of people, respondents to the survey, saying should be increased: public engagement for future town project planning, addressing workforce affordable and attainable housing issues, trail expansion, and acquisition and management of open space and new parks. As we look at a plan that will ultimately drive a resource allocation, we think those are valuable insights that are coming directly from the National Community Survey. The other specific graphic I'd like to draw your attention to is quality and importance. So for each of these categories, these facets of livability, which are part of the National Community Survey, again, benchmark across the country with other similar communities, they do an analysis of how the community rates a facet's quality versus how important it is. So what I find very valuable is this quality and importance gap analysis chart. You'll see in green is the quality and in blue is the importance. So areas where you see the green outpacing the blue, that's a good sign. That means that overall 90% of our Estes Park has strong, it performs strongly in that area. Areas where you can see larger gaps between the quality and importance, you can see the importance of the economy is very high and the quality is not quite up there. It's important to note there's a lot of subsets of these. Some of them are directly related to the town, some of them are a little more tangentially related to the town, but this is a valuable chart. I think when you're looking at it, when you look at a spot where there's a green dot that's far away from the blue dot, that means there's probably some work to be done there. There's agency that the town can take to hopefully close that gap and bring the quality and importance scores from our residents closer together. So that is all I have on the introduction. We are running a little bit ahead of schedule. So unless there's any questions, we can jump right to the review, mission, vision, and outcome areas.
Nice start.
Very useful.
So typically the mission and the vision do not change much from year to year. That said, we always like to go through it to make sure that it's still resonating with the board, making sure that if you've heard feedback from the community, your constituents, that it's reflected here. So I'll pause for a moment with the vision and the mission. The last time that we really fundamentally changed these was a few years ago. And the mission has been pretty static since the time I've been here. All right. Any outcome areas? These change more frequently. These are how the areas that we think it's important to focus on in order to advance that vision and that mission. So I'll go through each outcome area. I'm not going to read the whole description. You all are very familiar with these at this point, but I will read the specific area and then pause. And then at the end, we can go through, consider them collectively, and decide if there are any outcome areas that we're missing or that we should consider modifying. The first outcome area is exceptional community services. I will note that these are in alphabetical order, not in order of importance. Questions, feedback, changes on exceptional community services?
I think the 2A goal, since 1A only deals with workforce housing and affordable housing, yet 2 talks about housing as well, that we ought to add something in 2A.
Well, we're not doing the goals today.
Oh, we're not doing the goals.
No, we're doing the strategic policy statements.
Okay.
Yeah. The next session, we'll get into
Got
goals.
I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, it separated that. I should have finished with that comment instead of the NCS comment. So today we really are focused on the key outcome areas and the strategic policy statements. In our agenda, we have going through the outcome areas and the strategic policy statements separately. But we can go through them at the same time, or if you all want to consider the key outcome areas themselves and then go through each key outcome area strategic policy statements, we can do that too.
Yeah, I wouldn't change the key outcome area. I mean, that's the outcome we want. We don't have housing available for all segments sufficient yet, but that's what we're working
Move to governmental services and internal support. This is kind of the back office. This is how we make sure that the staff are equipped to perform and advance the other key outcome areas.
And that implies everything that feeds into high quality support, including staff and other resources, buildings, facilities. Silence is affirmation.
We typically go through these pretty quick. Most of the heavy lifting is in the strategic policy statements. Outstanding guest services. These are really our visitor-oriented activities, although that they do, residents do enjoy benefits out of this outcome area as well.
Preferred is an interesting word. We're the best.
That was modified a few, it's been modified a few times over the years.
Every few years we go to the
We've
next
used the best,
back
we've
and
used preferred.
It's perfectly okay. We do have some fears.
Public safety, health, and environment. This is the one each year that I personally think about. It groups together a lot of distinct categories it's become fairly large. Some of these areas we have specifically dedicated town departments, like the police department, and other areas it's more of a add-on to other things that are happening. Especially on the environmental side, the more the sustainability efforts have come along, the more crowded this outcome area has become. They all do ultimately relate to the overall safety and health of the public, which is why they've been grouped together for so long.
Does anybody feel that it's getting so large that maybe things need to be split up from that? I'm not saying I agree they need to be split, but it is such a big area. I didn't know if it would be helpful to have it split or maybe detrimental because they cross over so much.
Yeah, from an operational, pragmatic standpoint, it doesn't make a huge difference. It's more of it's a message, it's an artifact of relative importance to the board. They make sense to group together, but we do sort of mix things that are not necessarily in the same.
I think as long as it's operational, the way it is, that's good. I was just wondering if anybody had thought about that.
Might be, I think there's 11 strategic policy statements in there. That's just a reflection of the large. And frankly, most of the things that we do could be grouped under this category. So oftentimes we'll do, stormwater is absolutely an environmental outcome area, but we typically put it under utility infrastructure. So these all cross at some point. Robust economy. Town financial health, we added this one in 2016, I believe. It does undergird everything else. You can't do much in any of these other categories without healthy finances. Transportation includes planning. It includes our infrastructure efforts relative to streets, cars. It also includes systems for pedestrians, bicycles, and transit.
What do we call the category of we just call them e-vehicles? We had a name for them.
It's a good question there. It is not called out in the outcome area there. Typically I've seen them and how we've talked about it in our strategic plan for this year, the most frequent e-bikes, but low-speed electric vehicles,
LSEVs. Had a generic that wasn't just e-bikes, but e-something that covered them all.
In the code, it's micromobility devices.
Yeah, micro-mobility devices.
Because they are starting to have, I believe, I've heard other communities having issues with little motorcycle type, scooter, electric scooter type. So, yeah, there's a vast variety of those.
Do we need to make mention to micro-mobility since it's becoming ever?
On the other side, we've removed the specific articulation of transportation, and multimodal transportation includes all those things. I don't know, because we're going to break that down in the next column.
Yeah.
There's so much to include.
Yeah, it's okay. We could leave
You could just leave it as we have safe,
Right.
efficient, well-maintained multimodal transportation system.
We can deal with those details.
That's great. The more general it can be, the better.
We don't have to list them all.
Because there'll be something new in 20 years we And see
or in a year.
hovercraft.
Teleportation. Solve everything. And then this is a new one. I think we added this 2 or 3 years ago. Utility infrastructure. This category used to be, well, we had an infrastructure category, and we ultimately, that was a blend between streets and power and water and stormwater. We ultimately decided, well, let's separate transportation, and then we can expand on the utility infrastructure. So pragmatically, this includes power and communications, so our electrical and trailblazer system, water, and the stormwater system.
Is there a place that we could include a statement or a philosophy of balancing the best with meeting the needs and anticipating the demands? Is there some way to include that verbiage that instead of shooting for sending a man to the moon, being reliable with better than the next community? Well, I don't want to be the same. I want to be better, but I don't want to have an airplane crash truck just in case one of those planes comes down.
Sure.
You know, we can't do everything, but we can balance that. And I think the word balance may really resonate with a lot of people who are currently wondering, every time we talk about raising rates, every time we talk about anything that has to do with money, I think we have to be cognizant of the balance of taxpayer resources with what would be ideal. So I'm just going for the word balance.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point, and it might be something that we want to clarify through those strategic policy statements, something about the financials. I can see a lot of different areas that might relate to, we talk about the utility transfer frequently. That's one of those areas where, you know, every year we're trying to chip away at that. It's an unofficial goal, but it's not reflected in here. Right. So it might be we might come back to this when we do the strategic policy statements and add something with regard to financial balance as it relates to the utility infrastructure.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Just it's on the radar.
I think that's a good point. Anything else on utility infrastructure? All right. Well, we are 8 minutes ahead, so we'll jump back up to the strategic policy statement starting from the top. In order to keep us on time, we have allotted 20 minutes for each of these, so oh no.
There you go.
Hopefully that's just a blink. The Exceptional Community Services Strategic Policy Statement we have scheduled going to 1:50. So we have a little bit of extra time that can be allocated wherever within this area. So we have 10 strategic policy statements here. I'll run through them really quick. We support a wide variety of housing opportunities with a particular focus on a broad spectrum of affordable workforce housing. We support the needs of our senior community, including housing. Supports the needs of families in our community. Support a wide range of child care opportunities with a particular focus on infants and toddlers. We expand our open spaces and public park infrastructure and improve and maintain the durability, functionality, and efficiency thereof. We have an up-to-date comprehensive plan and development code that reflect the will of the community. We prioritize community accessibility for residents and guests from diverse cultures and residents and guests with disabilities. We enact policies that support all demographic segments of the community. We value and work to preserve, share, and respect the unique history of Estes Park and incorporate that history into our decision-making processes. And we support public art and creative endeavors. Changes.
Continue to like having senior community families and the child care all separated, very important segments and different actions related to this.
I'm wondering if item 2, we should add affordable, including affordable housing. Because we have it in 1.
What did you you say affordable workforce up here.
Another thought, although I don't think it necessitates a change, we don't have in the town of C anything about seasonal housing for summer workers. I think if you go to item 1, that probably encompasses a broad spectrum. I think that probably gets there. So I only raise it because I think we need to discuss that as well.
I will say that this is because of the timing of this process, we do have a number of objectives for the 2026 strategic plan that deal with seasonal housing. And there's a chance that the work that Deputy Town Administrator Dan Weber is doing with the Housing Authority may generate objectives and goals by the time this comes back around to the new board in April. Unless there's a specific need or desire to call it out, it is worth noting that we are working on that, and that may iterate into something.
Yeah, I think that's a more specific thing.
April. And it is specifically called out in the 2026 strategic plan, seasonal housing.
The other items from Exceptional Community Services. We'll move to governmental services and internal support. We maintain a well-trained and educated town staff. We attract and retain high-quality staff by being an employer of choice, including offering highly competitive benefits and wages and encouraging work-life balance. We match service levels with the resources available to deliver them. We strive to ensure that the membership of our appointed boards and commissions reflects the diversity of our community. We strive to gain meaningful input and participation from all community members. We prioritize and support a culture of customer service throughout the organization. We support a culture of continuous improvement in our internal processes and service delivery. We operate with transparency by maintaining open communication with all community members, proactively making town information available to the public. We monitor for and protect against cybersecurity threats. We maintain a robust, transparent, accessible, and user-friendly public-facing website. A lot of hyphens in that one. We ensure that our facilities are well maintained and meet the needs of town departments and the community.
Scroll back up to
I had some input this morning, it was loud and not happy about why would I pay attention to what's going on with the town if what we say never matters. And I think that sentiment is the same sentiment that it was probably 20 years ago. I remember feeling it several years ago. And so I wonder in that number 5, what stands out to me is that we strive to gain meaningful input and participation. Can we quantify, is there a way to measure what impact public input has? And so, posing that as, I didn't have a great answer for them other than, if we don't want change, what's the option? Do you want to have the Estes Park of your childhood? That's a choice. How do we get there? And do other people feel that way? Then the other person said, well, the town has to change. Really interestingly timed conversation of people wanting to feel heard, reacting to news maybe that comes up, where you hear there's something coming, and that project on Cleve Street has gotten a lot of attention with developing so much land. And so that's what precipitated the comments. Why would we add input if it didn't matter? So that makes me think, how do we quantify that? Can we say, we heard you, and this is the impact that it had? And I've seen that in other work that we've done here before. And it was, I think, a department manager that said, well, we heard this, and this is what we did to reflect that input. Now, I do not have the answer. I do not have a suggestion, but I want to raise something that's really fresh on my mind. Maybe it's something to be able to respond with, to say it's one of our goals is to be able to measure that and give that feedback back. Or you could ignore what I just said and we'll continue to try to gain meaningful input and not measure it. I don't know if that's realistic.
So one of the things that we've done on different projects is a listening log, where you put down the comment and then you say how it was responded to. And every comment gets put on a listening log. We did it on several other projects. So people can go out and look and see, here's what I said. Now, just because we listen doesn't mean we're going to respond to it or do something. You know?
I agree.
But using more of the listening logs, then somebody can go back and see, all right, I made this comment, they did listen to it, they took it under consideration, and this is where we went. That's a pretty common tool to be using.
That could be a full-time job too.
It is.
So,
well, anything like that to extend that is work.
well, then we go back and we look at our chart of what matters to people, and it's being part of the process.
Right.
And that community engagement. So how do we measure engagement? I don't know the answer, but I'm posing the challenge.
I think measuring, the outputs of engagement is fairly simple. We can measure, comments. We can measure interactions. We can measure the number of meetings, the attendees at the meetings. I think measuring the outcome of that engagement is more challenging.
Qualitative information. In large part, it's summarizing the spectrum of opinions, and it's difficult to put a number to it. But I think we could do more with reporting back on here's what we heard and here's what came of that at the end of our check-ins through a project or the end. Close out report.
Be good for our relationship with everyone who lives here to somehow measure and report the impact of input.
Well, we've talked about it, and we will have discussions about it regarding the required community meetings with developers to have something more formalized where comments and requests from the community, comments or requests coming from the community, if the developer takes minutes, makes a reply, or somebody takes minutes, and makes a reply, that we'll take a look at that there needs to be a feedback loop, even if that's a subsequent meeting or some other kind of output later that says that this is what we decided on that, we were able to make a modification. So same kind of thing, or we can't change that because of, and so having a complete loop in there, which I think would help on the development, if we get to that kind of mechanism, just in discussion phase. But it's one piece of it. Your comment is really broad on any kind of.
Well, in this column,
yeah,
it is. But is there a word or two or three that would not just strive to gain, but
respond
I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to commit to responding to everything.
And we do a lot of that. I know we acknowledge receipt of things, and we all kind of take team on that in the public forum when all the trustees are copied. We do a reasonable job of at least saying, we hear you, we got your comment.
I think it's worthy of reflecting this, and that everyone's on the same page of. We didn't just have 3 meetings because we had to, so we gained meaningful input. But we took that to the next level, and there's some clearly I don't have the answer here,
We
but
strive to
give
gain.
me a week.
Well, something like
and
we,
evaluate meaningful input or something along that line.
something like we value and respect meaningful input. Not just strive to gain it.
Yeah, well, that's good. I like that better.
I'm looking for more of a verb, something that is an action, like, it's meaningful, it's helpful. We're trying to gain more, but what are we doing with that information?
Will that end up in column D when we get to that, to create some kind of actionable process?
Perhaps. That would give me a few days to think.
And of course, we can always, in the next meeting too, if we come back and somebody has a great, brilliant, oh, I know how to say it.
Yeah.
Well, and often when you see recommended goals and objectives, be they from town staff or your fellow trustees, it can impact how these are worded. What I'm hearing from you, Trustee Eigel, is that maybe the strive word there is not impactful.
What
It's
did
an
you
effort
say
word.
again?
I said we value and respect meaningful input.
Value and respect.
Or we consider, or we include in the conversation, or we, something that really is something that I can refer back to in 6 months and say, hey, one of these goals for us is including this input.
We value, respect, and consider meaningful input. Come back to
Yeah,
that.
That feels better instead of strive to
It
gain.
does
or
sound
we
better. Now, of course, the valuative, the qualitative aspect of meaningful input, somebody's going to say, well, you'll just decide what you want to hear. Somebody could say, well, what's meaningful to you? You didn't consider my input. You must not have considered it meaningful.
I like this better because it says we're going to do something with it. The strive just says, all right, we're going to collect it. Fine.
Yeah.
And then it can go in file D.
You
But this
solved
says,
my problem there by doing what you did.
Okay, I feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, that is.
I'd like to introduce the idea of proactively doing so. Because just sitting here passively is different than proactively reaching out for that input.
Seek maybe
yeah.
That's kind of why I like strive a little bit. Maybe seek.
But
That's,
we need another one. We proactively seek public input.
yeah.
even just seek is show some intent to pursue or to.
Well, we do in a lot of ways. And, it's like Wednesday Doodle, we'll be doing meetings, seek.
This feels much better than I did 2 minutes ago. Thank you.
Are you saying that we need a separate one then on the, oh wait, you added seeking. You just
So
keep
we're going to grab it, we're valuing it, respecting it, and we're considering it.
Well, I think the proactive element could be in the next column over too, because it's more specific as to
It
action.
should be proactive.
And and it shows that commitment to chasing that out in a concrete way. And I see Piano Miller over there making notes.
Well, we'll see if it survives after we see it in the minutes. And right now, it looks good.
What was the prior language? We seek to. What was the prior language?
Strive.
We strive to gain.
To gain, strive to gain.
And we will see this in a document that we can.
I will send you this right after this meeting's done. This is what cues us up for the next meeting.
Okay.
So what you'll get this, and then for the next meeting, you'll get this with redlined goals and new objectives, and a document that summarizes all the board recommended objectives.
See, we have proactively engaged.
And that's good. That's proactively sending information out.
Right.
We want to say we're proactively taking information in.
this board has gotten efficient with each other in on our third time around with this particular group. But also, we've shaped these in these last couple of years too. So it's part of this. Also, we're missing 2 board members. I knew Kirby was going to have to. So.
I think before we move on to outstanding guest services. Right. So we value broad collaboration with our partners in providing outstanding guest services. We provide and support a diverse selection of high-quality events that attract guests to the town and support our mission. We strive to balance the impacts of visitation with the needs and quality of life of our residents. We balance data-driven decisions with community values when serving our guests and residents using up-to-date and relevant data. We contribute to an exceptional guest experience through high-quality visitor services. We work to ensure that Estes Park is a sustainable tourism destination. Nothing on that one. We'll move on. We're making short work of this. Public safety, health, and environment. We're committed to safeguarding the lives and property of the people we serve. We support environmental stewardship and sustainability through our policies and actions. We recognize that substance abuse in our community and schools is an ongoing issue and work with local and regional partners to improve awareness, treatment, and education. We value the importance of maintaining a local emergency communications center to serve the Estes Valley. We value the importance of maintaining the Estes Park Police Department as the law enforcement agency for the town. We value redundancy and collaboration in the provision of dispatch and law enforcement services. We strive to enhance the safety of emergency responders. We believe in and support restorative practices as a way to build and repair relationships, as well as increase understanding about the impact of crime in the Estes Park community. We train and prepare to fully and immediately respond to community emergencies. We're proactive in our approach to wildfire planning and mitigation in response to elevated fire risks in the Estes Valley and surrounding area. We recognize the importance of behavioral health in our community and work with local and regional partners to improve mental health, safety, treatment, and awareness.
Eight feels full of specifics, more than a philosophical statement, because I think that it covers so many things that are beneficial to the community that we may be able to broaden that and the shift over education about the impact of crime, facilitate relationships. Those could be action items, whereas as an overall statement, I think there's some benefit in opening it up a little bit, but committing to the philosophy of restorative practice in this area.
So moving it to we believe in and support restorative practices as a way to build and repair relationships, period, or even before that?
Yeah, before that, because it's not just about building and repairing relationships.
Restorative practices and restorative justice.
Well, it's an alternative way of approaching justice and working together as a community. So I've not had a lot of time to look at this. So
you're trying to define restorative in the statement.
Right,
is
right.
basically what's happening.
agree, and I think that that's going to limit it. Well, this is a philosophy that's important to the community. Perhaps we believe in and see the value, or we see the value and support the concept of restorative And are we not using restorative justice in this context? Restorative practices is,
That's broader.
that could also be environmental. So this is not necessarily, I see this as restorative. I wish Kirby was here to lend her perspective of this, but it feels like we're defining it in the overall statement.
Do you want me to flag this one for the next meeting?
Yes, or to have someone who is more involved in this area to maybe lend a little bit of perspective.
Well, we could further take it to the next level and define it more, because it started out as restorative justice. It was just restorative justice. And that's a common term that's used throughout the world, actually. But then we started expanding it to using those people for other things.
Yeah.
So maybe we do that, but then we have subsections at the next level that says restorative justice, community participation, and where are the different areas we're using restorative justice techniques.
Because restorative justice may be too limited for what that segment of.
For what we're doing now, yeah, it really is a facilitation team now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the rules of that of public facilitation is restorative justice. But we've expanded it from how it originally started as a traditional restorative justice program for people in the justice system.
Restorative and relationship community services, something.
It's almost like restorative justice needs to be moved to the next column as part of an overall philosophy of working together with the community.
It really is community facilitation.
Yeah. Facilitation.
And again, I
relationship.
defer to Jay or to Kirby or folks that are in it all the time.
And then maybe restorative justice is a subset of that, as well as the other community discussions like we're having with
Yeah, we've seen some really powerful work in
the
keeping the
development
meeting
of,
on track time-wise and focus-wise. And that's not just coming back from a crime and making things whole.
it really came, I mean, look at the history of it, came from those folks wanting to do more. And thought these skills that they were learned and they used in the traditional restorative justice stuff in the courts had an applicability in the broader community for other areas.
I will talk to Kirby about this, and as well as Jay. And Jay might even bring it to the partnership board, see what they think.
Can we go up to 3 if we're discussing 8? I think
What was that, Trustee Young? I'm sorry.
3. If you can go up to 3 or 4, what, yeah. I'd like to include on that harm reduction. Improve awareness, treatment, education, and harm reduction.
Sorry, Trustee Young, what was that word?
Harm reduction.
Harm reduction. Is that from?
I think that from ROAC, I think that encircles that. Prevention, awareness, treatment. Yeah, I think that encompasses more broadly of what we need to make sure we're addressing.
There are items on public safety, health, and environment. Moving on to robust economy. We have a diverse, healthy, year-round economy. Foster an inclusive, robust, and sustainable economy based on a triple bottom line approach, considering economic, social, and environmental impacts and benefits. We create and sustain a favorable business climate. We support a diverse economy, attracting and serving a broad range of current and potential stakeholders. We value the importance of a vibrant, attractive, and economically viable downtown. We support investment and revitalization in all of the town's commercial areas. We support economic and workforce development efforts led by other organizations, and we recognize the benefits of shopping locally and will actively support our local businesses and the local economy.
That seems good. It seems broad enough to open up the door for other specific objectives.
On the town financial health, we maintain up-to-date financial policies, tools, and controls that reflect the financial philosophy of the board, make data-advised financial decisions. We will consider the most effective financing strategy for large capital projects on a case-by-case basis, ensuring that each financing package is appropriately tailored to the project under consideration.
I don't know exactly how to address this, but I'd like to have some concept of government efficiency and minimization of taxes somehow, as part of this somehow. Not sure how to exactly deal with that, because it's financial health. It's not just about maximizing revenue, it's also about managing expenses and balancing those issues in the way, whatever way the community wants to do. So I don't have any real suggestion here other than it seems to me that we need something that speaks to our, we have a public trust to manage taxpayer money in the best way possible.
That may have had all the words in it. Public trust,
Yep.
managing taxpayer funds.
How do you say that in less than 80 words?
You can't say anything unless they got it.
He is a lawyer.
You raise a really good point there.
I will try to make a suggestion, but I need to think about that a little more.
Yeah, you could, I mean, it doesn't have to happen live in the meeting.
No.
If we have a placeholder
Yeah,
for
why don't
this
you put a
public
placeholder
trust
about
in finance.
effective financial management and
Like a spill code.
I happen to have great trust in Tammy.
oh yeah, this is
I do feel that the openness and, if there are issues, things are brought to us very timely. If there are any issues that need adjusting, correction, things like that.
I think you might put
It's felt really good in the last year in the garden.
I think we might put transparency though also in this section placeholder. I guess that's part of public trust for sure.
We can wordsmith something for consideration at the,
I'll come up with
at
something.
the April 30th. Yeah.
Yeah, that is good though, bring the public into this chapter. We mentioned it a lot, I think.
Other items in the financial health category.
It'll be the action items where we grow money trees.
transportation. This is a pretty extensive one. We value the development and maintenance of a safe, sustainable, accessible, and efficient multimodal transportation network. We will maintain a high-quality network of streets for our community. We will address traffic congestion throughout the town. We effectively communicate with residents and guests about parking and transportation options. We consider strategic data-driven investments in technology that promote the financial and environmental sustainability of the town's parking and transportation assets. We identify and leverage local, regional, and national partnerships that strengthen and extend the town's parking and transportation system. We consider the potential impacts of technology changes, including electric and autonomous vehicles and repurposing of parking structures in all transportation planning. And we will develop and maintain sidewalk and trail connectivity in the Estes Valley in partnership with other entities.
Yeah. Is there a way, now this has a feeling of we will build to meet the need. Is there a way to say we will measure the success and modify as appropriate when, just case in point, there's 10 red lights at Riverside and Elkhorn, 10 red light bulbs. And if the person on the far northwest corner pushes the button and there's not another car for 5 miles, all 10 red bulbs turn on and you wait the full time for that person to cross. There's probably technology that would make that less painful on the person driving through 10 that just stopped at 2 other lights. And so what I'm getting at is there a way to measure the success and effectiveness of our transportation network and make changes, even if it appears to be a decrease, not a full traffic signal, but a hawk signal, that would work very well, and it would be kind to the motorist, it would protect the pedestrian, but it would not be building. It would be looking at something and coming up with a good solution that works for everyone, while maintaining the goal. So, how do you say that in 10 words?
Item 3, if you said we will measure traffic efficiency and address traffic congestion or something.
Well, that's the only place that concern fits. And so addressing could be up, down, or sideways. It does not necessarily mean growth, but I'm looking for a real-time, what do they call that, a living document, a living plan, whatever that is. I'm sure there's a word.
So I'm wondering if we modify that slightly to we will evaluate and address traffic congestion throughout the town on an ongoing basis, meaning that it's not just happening once, we're doing it more often, and then some of the specific action items there are plans or processes to regularly review that, and especially with regard to the state highway system, work with CDOT to tweak as necessary versus if it's out there, it's done, we don't need to do anything with it unless someone reports a problem to us.
And you are responsive when people report problems.
Yeah, we are in more of a, I'd say, and David, correct me if I'm wrong here, somewhat of a more reactive position, especially with regard to all of the stoplights in town are on the state highway system, so we're often reacting to that, and there's less maybe proactivity there unless we've partnered on a major project like we did with the downtown Estes Loop. Then we're a little more proactive, but as you all remember, we moved that ongoing assessment out of that from a traffic cyclical standpoint, but not necessarily from a ongoing assessment of the system as a whole. So if we're looking at this, that may be a goal or objective under a broader effort to continually evaluate and address traffic situations in town, to have a more procedural-based touch point with CDOT where we're not just waiting until a problem's reported to us. We're doing it on a more proactive level.
This year we did work, we met with CDOT, they came out and we proactively looked at the entire system for traffic efficiency. That might be a better word than congestion. Is looking at the efficiency of all the signals, multimodal efficiency.
That's a great substitution.
This also could be included in the technology section. In 7, we talked about electric vehicles autonomous, but what about technology changes in demand management and traffic management? things like Mark was talking about, and smart signals and things like that. That technology is changing all the time.
I think you had a good point. I think multimodal also needs to be in that, where you changed,
It's in the higher
really
levels.
evaluate, or is it in
It's in
the,
the higher levels.
okay.
Well, number 3.
Number 3,
We want a pedestrian to feel
Well,
connected.
something.
We want a motorist to feel like it's efficient. So I think you can meet the needs of both by evaluating it on an ongoing basis.
That
And that opens that up.
Yeah, I like the broad look that you guys took, where you looked at the whole system. But we know there are going to be the reactive too. It's like this thing in the last couple of weeks, well, it's been a little bit, we've heard of it with the high drive, Moraine, Mary's Lake. There's something wrong with it, occasionally with the timing, but not always, so you're always going to get those kind of reports.
So it's a more proactive approach, maybe, or
A combination of
yeah.
both of those, yeah.
And it implies a level of ownership. Just to be very clear, it implies a level of ownership over the state system, and I don't think that's necessarily a problem because the state is most of the time very responsive to when we're pointing out potential traffic issues. They work with us really well at Region 4, CDOT Region 4. So I think at some level they rely on communities, especially far-flung communities, to identify challenges and help them with it.
That ownership is an important concept there, and that we take ownership as a community, whether it's CDOT or Larimer County, that we're going to take it upon ourselves to have a good product, and that is our community. And we'll work with those agencies. That says it. Thank you for.
So I would like to add to item 2, streets and trails. Now, I know we have an item down below, and I'd kind of like to look at that too. But it seems like, in terms of maintaining them, it's not just the streets, it's the trails too.
I like that because we have a trail condition index now, which is a little
Right,
unique and funky, but
If we go down to the bottom, let's go down to 8, I think it is. Develop and maintain. Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Because I thought we needed develop in there too, and you got it
yeah,
there. So.
it's that one strikes me as more of the, hey, we're going to make sure that we don't lose the connectivity, but it's not necessarily speaking to the condition of the actual trail itself.
Okay.
I like adding streets and trails up here. Anything else on the strategic policy statements for transportation? All right. Moving on to utility infrastructure, we have 6. Provide safe, high-quality, reliable, and redundant water service. We provide safe, high-quality, reliable, and sustainable electric distribution service. We effectively and efficiently manage stormwater and are proactive in mitigating flood risks. We encourage and support renewable energy sources and storage. We provide access to high-speed, high-quality, reliable trailblazer broadband service. We partner with the 3 other owner communities to advance Platte River Power Authority towards our goal of a 100% non-carbon energy mix.
In number 1, does redundant commit us to major capital outlay by this statement. Whereas if we were going to provide safe, high quality, and reliable water service, that gives us the option of approaching that in any way we desire without committing us to a certain strategy.
Well, the redundancy that we've discussed in the early stages of replacing the water plants have still talked about the potential of a single plant, but with two or multiple pathways and perhaps different technology. So if one fails, you've got that. And that's the redundancy that is in my mind, not necessarily creating 2 or 3 water plants around town. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, since we're not connected to any other water source, it seems like redundancy to me is critically important. If we have a problem, we're gonna have to ship water up from the valley.
If you don't mind me interjecting, Jackie's in the back, has a long career in this type of stuff, and what she'll tell you is that redundancy is kind of basically what the current state of art is. It doesn't necessarily mean 2 water plants, it doesn't mean 2 of everything, but you build that redundancy into a single plant even. So the concept of redundancy was thrown in here originally because there was an explosion at the Lake Carter treatment plant, and shortly after that explosion, there was a very strong demand from the board that we shall have 2 separate water plants. And if you look at the root cause of that Carter Lake explosion, I think everybody could probably agree that there's much better and more efficient ways of addressing the root cause of that problem. So I guess I'm not opposed to removing the redundant, because when you say reliable,
Yeah, that's kind of
reliable
right within that.
yeah,
That's what I was thinking too. Reliable, redundancy is part of reliable.
yes,
And if we're gonna do it there, we want that kind of redundancy with our power and our broadband as well. We've talked about needing different lines coming up with our fiber as well, which is redundancy. So
Yeah.
redundancy seems to be a technique to be reliable.
Yes.
I'm hearing that the word redundant is redundant.
See, I have a problem with taking that out, though. You know, in my years at the hospital, I used to say redundancy are us. Redundant generators, redundant sources of broadband, redundant, everything except a roof. You can have one roof, but, whatever it was, in a 24/7 operation, and the town is a 24/7 operation. I find that word very important.
and I find it just as important. I think it goes back to Trustee Eichel's comment about the balancing of cost. And so maybe it's more of a next itemized goal or objective to ensure that we openly discuss what level of redundancy you're willing to pay for.
I think what Trustee Lancaster said, the reliability for us in Estes Park, no interconnections with any other utility that can back us up if something goes wrong, that redundancy is part and parcel of reliability.
And we understand that around the table today. If someone's reading this away from the table, are they seeing that necessarily? There may be a way of doing it with a separate, and we might placeholder this one and consider we evaluate the reliability of our services for appropriate redundancy or something.
I will say this one's near and dear to my heart. So this is kind of where I feel like we really concentrated and put in a lot of effort into our water master plan. Documentation to kind of to tease out and to document a lot of what you're saying, because as you say, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So I think it is incumbent on us to take that responsibility, but at the end of the day, it becomes I feel like it's a community / board decision to make that balance of cost. We can come up with a design, we can come up with a proposal, but it's our community that has to pay for it.
In the flood in 2013, when half the town and the hospital lost all access because there was only one connection that we had at the time, we did not have access to the redundant other connection. And since then, of course, we've had great growth in that direction, and including during the what was the event that drove the Bureau of Reclamation to letting us come through the the tunnel too, and having that additional option at that time, whatever one of our most recent disasters was. And so like Trailblazer and internet in general, we know we built in these 10, 12 years of redundant pathways and everything. And electricity, you've got, different ways of handling when a line goes, although it's not perfect, but, and so on and so forth. Redundancy is so huge.
Well, maybe,
I like redundancy in there, actually.
Nice to have two cars, right?
Well, yeah, I think, to me, it's a little different than reliable. Reliable, speaking like a car, you're gonna make sure your car is reliable. It's gonna have the tires or air in the tires. Redundancy means you have a plan. If that car goes down, you have another avenue to get from point A to point B.
you have a spare tire.
Yeah, you have something.
That's your e-scooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that word left in there, but for
Yeah, how about-
somewhere addressing it.
How about, because the thing that hit me is it's only we have it for water. What if we put in a separate one to say we support the appropriate level of redundancy in all town provided utilities?
Yeah, I like the idea of separating that. Yeah.
And then we just say it's important for our, not just water, it's important for broadband and
Yeah, it is.
electricity.
Yep.
And to the broadband point, the cost of that redundancy did not, in my opinion, rise to the board level because actually PRPA built it, to the redundancy for the electric system. We're working on a redundant path up Highway 36 with cooperation from Longmont and CDOT. And it wasn't cheap, but it also wasn't what I feel like you were talking about at the beginning is, at what point does this dollar amount become a bigger community / board conversation?
And I think that's an important point. So we have multiple goals and objectives across the strategic plan, and we don't, when we run into an area where they're in conflict, and it happens not infrequently, if the goal is to build 2 full-bore water treatment plants to really max out the redundancy aspect, that would come into conflict with our financial responsibility goals because it's not financially feasible to build 2 year-round redundant water plants. It's just not. So it's not going to happen. Redundancy itself scales. You can be redundant because you have more redundant because you have a generator. You can be more redundant because you have an extra train. You can have 2 extra trains. You can have 3 extra trains. I think it's a scale. And I think support also is a qualifying, and we can workshop that. I think it's a qualifying word because town staff is not saying that thinking all costs, like we're going to have everything redundant. Because we can tell you right now that the WAPA lines have been dropped, 3 times now? And whether the town retains power is derived, there are a few other redundancies, but we have seen situations where the other redundancies to those power lines have failed. So you can build as many redundant points as you can, and you can still get a perfect storm and have a failure. So there is declining marginal benefit to investing more money and more redundancy, and I think trying to connect this goal with the financial responsibility goal that the board put earlier in the strategic policy statements, those 2 interacting, maybe Trustee Igo will help cut the concern off of, we're just going to see this and it's going to be everything to the nines.
And what I said was, we support the appropriate level of redundancy. Because you're right, you can be too. we could all drive around with 4 spare tires. But we really don't need 4 spare tires. We probably should have 1 spare tire.
Sorry, I missed that, Trustee Lang.
No, that's all right.
That's a good clarification there.
Yeah, because I agree with you. We can't have, you go overboard with that, it doesn't make sense. It's financially restricted.
And other values as well. I mean, appropriate level of redundancy and fire protection would have lots of negative effects, financial and otherwise. If you build all your buildings out of concrete, you cut a 1 mile swath of trees around your town. Like you can go overboard on any level of redundancy. Other comments, questions, feedback on that one? Right. Well, that might be record time for this one. With the new board coming on board, I suspect either our next one will go much longer or next year's strategic plan session number 1 will be longer.
Good job, Ernie.
Doing a job, Daniel, sorry.
I don't think it's a problem to end early, but we like to have time just in case the board wants to dig into these more foundational elements because they do cascade. This sets the stage for everything else that's to follow. So just a reminder, we'll take this, we'll highlight these areas that we talked about that are new. We'll send you all this document as you consider potential goals and objectives that you would like to recommend as we look towards the April 30th meeting. In the meantime, staff at all levels of the organization will be working on goals and objectives for the board's consideration as we move towards that next checkpoint. With that, unless there's any questions about process, I think that's all I have.
Yeah, again, I think that part of the fact that we've had the same board here, this is our 3rd time that we've helped shape these to our satisfaction, so not much to change there. I know we've got some new directors and stuff too. And of course, you guys can always make suggestions on these also.
So if we were making wholesale changes every year,
Yeah.
that would show we're not doing a very good job of the strategic plan.
Well, in that case, this meeting is adjourned.
I'm like, I'm here for like last time.
You were watching it on video until you saw me wrong at the end.
That's it.